Joining us now is the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba. You saw him moments ago. Very strong words there coming from him. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. Well, listening to you there, let me quote your point. You said you've detected some unscrupulous elements aimed at hijacking the protest. Are you on the trail of these unscrupulous elements? I mean, what are you doing to ensure that they don't scuttle, this protest that ordinarily Nigerians are hoping will be peaceful?
Well, let me start by thanking you for inviting me to your program. It's a pleasure to be here. And I would also like to add that essentially there are several factors to be considered in examining the motivation for this protest. One of such factors is the motivation. Is it motivated by opposition politics? Is it motivated by sovereign interference? Could it be motivated by interest parties or by terrorist groups or even organizations that are feeding on the frustrations of Nigerians?
Right.
Now, the intelligence organizations and agencies are doing a good job in pointing that out. And pointing to us, those that can be picked up, and the relevant agencies are at it. But it must be stated that while the protesters have a constitutional right to conduct peaceful protest, they do not have a right to mobilize for anarchy and the unleashing of terror.
Yeah, but these are aggrieved Nigerians. They're not, organizing to cause anarchy, what you call anarchy or chaos. They're only saying we're going to come out to protest against bad governance and make some 15-point demands of the government without necessarily saying, they're not calling on anybody to destroy things, around the country, are they? Well, why are you reading anarchy into what ordinarily is a planned peaceful protest?
Well, you need to look at the contemporary context for what has initiated this protest. And we don't need to look further than Kenya.
Right.
They want to shadow what is happening in Kenya. And if we look at what's happening in Kenya, it's violent. There have been destructions of properties. And we know that for Nigerians, when we copy, that there are indications that there will be status-related violence. And what do I mean by that?
Right.
Good. You carry a smartphone. You think you're poor, but somebody can carry out violence to collect that phone from you. You drive a car. You have properties, you have a shop, you have house. Even as minute as using, I say minute,
right,
but for somebody else it's luxurious, as using air condition, you will be targeted. And other areas that we found out that will be targeted are worship centers, businesses, markets, and the list goes on.
So does the military have any plans to protect and ensure that, these places where you have mentioned, worship centers and what have you, markets, will have adequate protection? What kind of contingency plan are you making as a military to ensure that, the peace carries the day?
Good.
Things don't go left.
Good. I will say that the Constitution is very clear as to how and when the military gets involved in such situations. There is what is called military aid to civil authority, which involves the deployment of the military in such a situation in support of the police and civil security to maintain law and order. Until we are invited, we don't come in. But for now, what we're doing is carrying out situational awareness to read what's happening in the environment so that at the point, if we are called in, we know exactly what's happening.
If you are called in as the military, will you be protecting Nigerians? Or is it the government that you'll be protecting? Or will you be maintaining the role that the Constitution says is yours to play?
If we come in as the military, Ours is to carry out our constitutional role and responsibilities.
Which is?
Which is to support the civil authority and agencies to ensure law and order is maintained. And the civil authority and agencies we're talking about here now is the police, because at that point, it is assumed that the police is overwhelmed. And so the military comes in to prevent a state of anarchy and lawlessness.
You pointed out the Kenya experience, which is still ongoing. Exactly. Are there lessons there for the Nigerian military to ensure that things don't degenerate?
Well, I will say that we have conducted protests in this country prior to now. But this particular one is different. And it is different because there's an atmosphere of hardship. And that atmosphere of hardship, they say an angry man, a hungry man is an angry man.
So you agree that the hunger is not politically motivated? The anger is not politically motivated?
Oh, you must understand that could it be opposition parties? Could it be terror groups? Could it be sovereign interference? Could it be interest parties that are feeding on the frustrations of Nigerians?
Well, Nigerians will be relying on you to give answers to the questions that you've reeled out. I mean, is it terrorists that are behind this? Is it opposition parties? Is it who? Is it foreign elements? You should have answers to these questions based on your intel.
We do have answers to these questions.
Right.
But let's look again at Kenya, where they want a shadow.
Right.
Okay. Now we see the Kenyan government has given in a lot, but still, the situation is unresolved up to date. We wouldn't want such a situation to happen in our country. And what we're saying is that we need to quench the fire of violence rather than to ignite it. Because when we ignite it, there's no telling how far that fire will go.
Absolutely, and we do appreciate your point, and of course you coming on the show. Major General Edward Buba is Director of Defense Media Operations, joining us on News 9.